Hello, here we are, and what we are going to work in this session is about how does agriculture affects the environment. Okay, yesterday I gave you in the previous video a little bit of information about it, but let's work a little bit deeply on it. Okay, for that I need you to move on to your natural science pupils book on pages 60 and 61. Okay, as you can see here, we've got deforestation. This is one of the most important problems due to agriculture, because sometimes to grow crops, we need to cut down a lot of areas of trees, okay, of forest. And if you cut the trees, apart from the problem itself, that killing the living things that give us oxygen and that cleans air, is that there are lots of animals that live in the trees, not only birds, squirrels, or even insects and worms. Lots of animals live there. And if you cut down the trees and you make the forest to disappear, you are taking away those houses from those animals, the habitat for those animals. Okay, apart from that, of course, we have less oxygen and we have more carbon dioxide, and you know that is a problem for all living things because we all need oxygen to live. Okay, another one of the problems that you have in here is fertilizers. And is, as I told you on the other video, the problem with fertilizers is that they can enter the rivers and the lakes and they can pollute them. They can contaminate them, okay? If you contaminate and you pollute rivers, the animals that live there, like fish or aquatic animals or even aquatic plants, okay, can be harmed, can be damaged, and that's a problem. Also, sometimes even when we clean the water before we drink it, sometimes in some situations, part of the fertilizers and part of the chemical products can get on the water we drink. Okay? About pesticides, one of the most important problems, that we have is that they kill insects that make pollination. Okay? We need pollination to produce more plants. Remember that pollination is a part of reproduction, a part of plants' reproduction. Okay, we need animals like hummingbirds or like bees or like other insects that fly away from one flower to another, taking pollen from one plant to another to produce new plants. When we are killing the bad insects or the bad animals that are harming the plants, also we are killing the good ones. This is a great world trouble we are in, because lots of these are disappearing. And if bees and pollinators disappear, we are not going to produce food anymore. Why? Because they are part of the reproduction of the plants. If we kill pollinators, plants can't reproduce. And if plants can't reproduce, how are we going to get fruit and vegetables and cereal? I encourage you, I tell you that you should investigate in the internet about the disappearing of bees and the disappearing of pollinators and what is the real problem in the world about this situation because of pesticides. Okay, then we have here another problem. Here about monoculture. Why? Because when you produce monocultures, only one kind of crop, you need very large, very big areas. It means that the wild plants and the wild animals and the species that were living there disappear. It's the same situation with the deforestation. Okay? Then, as I told you, we have the plastic greenhouses that you can see in Almeria. It's really that when you see a picture from the Earth taken from the space with a satellite, and you can see that you can see all the white plastics covering big areas. Okay, it's unattractive and it's a problem. And also plastic waste is very contaminating. Okay, can pollute. So it is not a good option. Then we have here the irrigation, that it can affect rivers and other water sources. Why? Because we need to take the water from the rivers. We have to take the water from the reservoirs. What happens if we have 1 year with a very strong drought, con una fuerte sequía? If it is not raining, there is not going to be water in the reservoirs, there is not going to be water in the rivers. How are going to get that water the living things need to live? Only for watering plants. This is a problem too. Okay, and finally, here we have landfills. Okay, landfills of food waste, because it creates a lot of carbon dioxide, and you know that carbon dioxide is not good for living things. Okay, so these are the main problems that we produce when we try to produce food for all people around the world. One option could be the organic farming that you have in here. Again, I encourage you to look for information about organic farming and the different alternatives, the different options we can have to the traditional agriculture and the traditional farming that we are developing with all these problems. Okay, of course, it's important to take into account the food waste. Okay, because we sometimes buy more food than the food we eat. That is a problem, because we are producing using all those things, after all, to have the food in the rubbish, what is a pity. Also because there are people who don't have access to food, and it's really sad that we are wasting food and we are putting and throwing food into the rubbish. Meanwhile, there are lots of people who can't have food to live. Okay, and to avoid this, we should store food correctly, so it is not going to be spoiled, it's not going to be unspoiled. We should also understand food labels. Remember when we were working about nutrition, how important it is to understand the labels of food and plan the meals carefully, so we don't cook more food than the food we are going to eat, or we can preserve it and we can freeze it in the fridge so we can eat it later, 2-3 days later, or a week later. Okay, to try to save food, because if we save food and we don't waste food, we are not going to need to produce more plants, more vegetables, more fruit in here, using this or causing these situations. Okay, about landfills, it's important to understand. You have here the word, okay, is a key word. It's a deep hole in the ground full of rubbish. Okay, it's what we say vertederos. Okay, if we have lots of landfills, okay, the landfills, when we need to make disappear all the rubbish, okay, they can create a lot of carbon dioxide. Why they are so bad? So these are the most important cons, the most important bad points about agriculture and how they affect environment. I hope you reflect about them and you try to look for your own solutions. Okay, as always, if you have any question, let me know. Bye bye.